Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And the movie I want to talk about today comes from 1975, 50 years ago, and this is Night Moves. And this is a film starring Gene Hackman in one of his best performances, directed by Arthur Penn. And this is a detective story, a neo-noir. Some people call these films from the early 70s Watergate noirs. Um, because they reflect the paranoia, the disillusionment with the society at large. But it starts off as a very conventional detective story in which Harry Mosby, played by Gene Hackman, is called to Private Eye is called to the Hollywood Hills, where a woman who is a former B actress and in movies. She has a teenage daughter who has run away, and she wants Gene Hackman, Harry Mosby, to find her daughter. There's some sort of money situation where her daughter, Deli, played by Melanie Griffith, is she's dependent on having her daughter, custody of her daughter, because then she gets a certain amount of money from Deli's father, who was rich and has passed away. So there's a dual motive here, and so we go from Southern California, very specific milieu that's part of detective fiction lore, going back to Raymond Chandler. And then we go to Florida because Harry Mosby believes that Deli has perhaps gone to her ex-stepfather's fishing establishment in the Florida Keys. So we get very much, I think, intentional. We get a nod to both Ross McDonald, who a very famous detective writer of the 60s and 70s, Lou Archer novels, who often in 20-some detective stories would go off to find missing teenage daughters from dysfunctional families. and Lou Archer would often sympathize more with the runaway than he would with the family because of kind of a corruption that of the society in which he lived in, that especially in the Southern California society. So he goes off to Florida, and here we sort of encountered another detective writer of the time, John D. McDonald's Travis McGee novels that were set on in seaside towns, and this is where the stepfather is living. He has fishing tours and also plane tours. Everybody seems to be a pilot in this movie. And he does indeed find Deli there. Bridget initially doesn't want to come back, but there is an air of corruption here. There's an air that some smuggling may be going on, and that Harry is one step behind of what's really happening. He cannot really see. He cannot put the clues together, and he's a man who looks for clues. And back in L.A., there's a dual story where Harry's marriage seems to be falling apart as he's discovering his wife was having an affair. Harry's a former football player. He is not an intellectual. His wife, played by Susan Clark, very much is. She owns a antique shop, and she's become involved with evidently a very rich man who lives on Malibu. Lives in Malibu, and we get played by Harris Yulin, and so we get to see a little bit of Malibu in this Southern California dissection. He is an intellectual, and so Harry feels that his marriage, the clues are now evident. He has missed the clues in his wife's disaffection, and equally so when he's in Florida. What's going on here? He gets involved with a group of stunt pilots, on movie sets, and in these cast of characters. Harry's missing the clues. He's missing the big picture. But we're worth them all the way. Well, pretty much all the way. So when he's in Florida, this stepfather's Deli's stepfather has a girlfriend hanging around. She's a woman of the world. Deli is a flirtatious teenager, and it's implied that she has probably shared some of her own mother's lovers and has gone off with various stuntmen. She is portrayed in the movie as being 16. Melanie Griffith was 17 at the time. She's quite good in this role because she does portray the vulnerability as well as the flirtatiousness of her character. James Woods, one of his early roles here, is one of the, he's sort of a hanger-on mechanic in the stunt team that's being portrayed here, and so this again, Harry gets involved with the Jennifer Warren character played by Jennifer Warren. She's I think this was maybe her first role too. She's quite a foil for Harry's sort of detective patter. In fact, she's one step ahead when the detective patter, the femme fatale, the sharp, sarcastic dialogue. and Arthur Penn is really good with actors. There's a certain vibrancy to his movies and the performances in his movies. He has a strong visual sense. So all these locations are very compelling. But again, he's missing the big picture here. We're missing the big picture as well, because we're basically following Harry in his search for clues. So he's going on a relatively simple mission to retrieve Deli for her mother, but he's become involved in something that's far beyond what he could have anticipated. Now, screenplays by Arthur Sharp. He also wrote the screenplay to Robert Aldridge Western, Lozano's Raid. Some terrific dialogue, but there are some narrative implausibilities, I think, in this film that bothered me back in 1975, still bother me today. In Penn's career, Arthur Penn, director, really came into full flower with 1967 with Bonnie and Clyde, with Alice's Restaurant, and then a revisionist Western, Little Big Man. And he really caught the tenor of the times, especially with younger people, that there was something in the air that just wasn't right. The establishment, everything was corrupt, and nobody is to be trusted. And Penn is very good at this kind of paranoia. This is like the Watergate noir films. Alan Pakula's his paranoia trilogy, including Clute and The Parallax View. It's very much a part of that era. It was filmed in late 1973. There was 18 months of post-production, so it didn't come out to the middle of 1975. And in 1973 to 75, quite a bit was happening, but this paranoid feeling was starting to dissipate. 75, a couple months before the release of Night Moves, Chinatown came out, probably the ultimate neo-noir, and so there was, which was fresh in the minds of critics and probably audiences. Do we need another kind of detective story? And whatever its virtues, Night Moves isn't nearly as good as Chinatown. And then Arthur Penn's career went off the rails. I mean, he made maybe another 8 films, and they got progressively worse. So it's difficult to. It's interesting though that so many artists who make these movies have a certain time in their career where they really connect with the zeitgeist, the way people are feeling. But by 1975, this was starting to wane. These kind of bleak movies, and audiences may have had enough of them. A month after Night Moves came out came Jaws, and it showed the Hollywood studios a whole new avenue of how to make a lot of money. The new Hollywood basically existed because the studios were eager to try to find movie stories that would appeal to a younger audience. And they certainly found it with Jaws and then Star Wars, Rocky. A new optimism was being born, and it sort of culminated when Ronald Reagan was elected president in 1980. So it's a film that can get under your skin, though. It has sort of a creepy feel to it. Again, there's implausibilities here, and I especially saw it when I saw that the first time in the movies. I was disappointed with it. I was with it a long way until the end, and the ending to me was a real head-scratching, implausible moment. I read 3 contemporaneous reviews of the film. None of them mentioned what I felt was, and I think a lot of members of the audience felt, was just very confusing. And one of these reviews was by Roger Ebert, who gave the film 4 stars. Vincent Canby in the Times panned the film, and then there was a Boston newspaper reviewer who was kind of mixed. And they not only didn't mention what I felt was implausibilities in the story, they didn't mention the nudity that Melanie Griffith exhibits in the film. It's brief and it's not salacious, but nevertheless, it's a jolt nowadays to see a teenager in a major Hollywood production, and they don't mention that. It's just, it seemed to be, it was a whole different time as far as permissiveness goes, and perhaps we're living in far more puritanical times today versus 50 years ago. So the film looks really terrific in Dolby Vision. The title "Night Moves" is a really good title because you can look at this title many different ways. A night with a K in front of it, nighttime, a chess piece that does come into the plot at one point, as Harry likes to play chess. So the Dolby Vision picks up the nighttime scenes very well, and Bruce Surtees was just amazing with his dark cinematography. From the very opening shot here in the Dolby Vision, there was just great detail, but a very vivid quality, very film-like. This movie, I think there's some controversies on the forum about the look of the film, but certainly to my untutored eyes, it looked fantastic. In the supplements, we get a commentary by Matthew Geary, and he wrote a book about Night Moves, the making of Night Moves, and so the research is copious. I mean, it's so interesting, and whether you like the film or not, film history, I think, is just so. It's just so amazingly interesting as time goes by. And we have an essay by Mark Harris, also very good. And he wrote a book called Five Came Back about John Ford and Frank Capra, George Stevens. I forget, there's a couple more Hollywood directors who participated in World War II and came back after the war to be very different people and make very different kind of films. He has an essay here. There's a couple of interviews with Arthur Penn. there's also a pretty good discussion about the differences between the Alan Sharp's conception of both Harry Mosby and the movie and Arthur Penn's conception of it. There was some disagreement. Penn, generally speaking, disagreed with he had problems. In fact, I did a video on Altered States a few days ago, and Penn was the original director, and I did a whole load of pre-production work before creative differences with Patty Chayefsky derailed that film. It would have been a much different film with Arthur Penn directing it for sure. Again, this is a film noir, a neo-noir. If you're interested in neo-noir, definitely you're going to want to see this film. And if you're Gene Hackman, especially because Gene Hackman is really good here. He's low-keyed, restrained through most of the film. He's trying to figure things out. He's always trying to figure things out. And part of the poignancy of the film is that he just can't figure it out. Even at the end, he seems to be very perplexed. And so this is an interesting character played by Hackman. Again, if you're a fan, I think this is a must-see film. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.